How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio, November 29, 2018, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We got a lot of news to get into here today. Very, very busy weekend. There are a couple of these coming up. One this weekend, one December, where we've got 2 UFC shows, 2 Bellator shows.
That's this weekend.
I got something in December, too. That December 14th?
December 14th weekend's crazy. So December 14th weekend, there's a Bellator show on Friday night on Paramount, which would be Michael Chandler and Brent Primus for the lightweight championship. And I think there's another big one that weekend as well. And then there's Saturday would be, these are both from Honolulu. Bellator's got a second show from Honolulu, which is the Zone show, which is Alima Leigh McFarland headlining that one, and also Frank Mir's fighting on that show. And UFC is going to have its last Fox show ever from Milwaukee. And also Friday night would be the final Ring of Honor show of the year, Final Battle, which at this point appears to be the final show for the Young Bucks, Cody, Adam Page, and perhaps others in Ring of Honor. Several other people's contracts have expired, but we don't know the other ones. We don't know what's going on, but it's basically the end of an era as far as Ring of Honor goes. This Final Battle show, and then WWE's got TLC on that Sunday. So and then there's New Japan is running a couple Korakuen Hall shows that weekend. And if they do the Tanahashi Okada against Ibushi and Omega match, it would be on one of those shows, because the tradition is that they do a tag match with the headliners from the Tokyo Dome. Now, it could be something different. It could be, let me see, it won't be Jericho. Jericho's not working that show. So it could, I suppose, be like Omega and Naito. But Omega and Ibushi makes more sense. It doesn't have to be Tanahashi and Okada. But if they are to do that tag match, and it kind of feels like that they're going to build to that, that would be the night to do it. So that's Korakuen Hall is way too small of a building for it, but that's the building that's booked. So so that's kind of like what they are probably, I shouldn't even say probably. It's just if they're going to do that, that would be the night. That would be the night to do it. So, that's going to be a real big weekend. And then this weekend's got Bellator on Friday from Thackerville, Oklahoma, and then Saturday from Genoa, Italy. So those are both pretty minor shows, really. There's 2 UFCs. There's a Ultimate Fighter final on Friday night from Vegas. There's a Saturday night show from Adelaide, Australia. Junior Dos Santos against Tai Tuivasa is the main event. Tuivasa is undefeated. This will be by far the biggest test of his career. Mark Hunt's fighting probably for the last time in UFC. It's his last fight on his contract. There will be people who will bid heavily for him. There's a lot of companies throwing out a lot of money right now. And he's made it very clear that he doesn't like working for UFC for a lot of reasons. So he's probably going to leave. So there's that. And there isn't really much else this weekend. I mean, the usual Friday Night Arena Mexico, and not really any other major shows. I think Impact is doing a Twitch show this weekend from Salinas, California, not too far from here. So I don't know what else. Just no big WWE specials till the 16th. So there you go.
Well, not a lot of big MMA news when one of the stories today is Sage Northcutt has been cut.
He wasn't cut. That's not true. So what happened, his contract was expired in July. He's won his last 3 fights. And Sage Northcutt is, they've kind of, tried to book him to protect him a lot more than they do with most fighters, because he's a good-looking guy. And I mean, the one thing, whether it's guys or girls, when it comes to fighting, just like wrestling, it's not that different. If you're really good looking, you're going to be protected or you're going to be promoted far. Look at Paige Van Zandt, who's really nothing special as a fighter, or Rachel Ostovich, who's even less. They're being promoted. You heard Rachel Ostovich is actually going to fight Paige now?
They're still promoting it.
She said she's fighting, which is insane. She has a broken orbital bone. The fight's on January the 19th, which is not that far. I can see why she's going to, but how do you train with a broken orbital bone and then get into a fight? Now, the whole thing is that, for Ostovich, this is like a big career opportunity and one she probably, by rights doesn't deserve as far as her fighting ability, but they want to market a Paige Van Zandt versus Rachel Ostovich fight because it's the first ESPN Plus show, and they feel that if they put the pictures of those women or photos of them training and whatever on ESPN and promote it, people will want to buy the, they'll sign up for ESPN Plus and they'll want to see the fight. So it's, from a marketing standpoint, it's not like it's a high-quality fight between top-ranked people, but they believe that it's a fight that they can promote. And it was a big fight on that show, even though it shouldn't be by all rights. But that's the world, So for her, Paige Van Zandt is the star. So it's like Rachel Ostovich is kind of getting this fight. Also, I think that they would like for Paige Van Zandt to get a win, and she would be favored in this fight. She's especially like Rachel Ostovich. How much training can she do with all those injuries? But for her, yeah, it's a big opportunity. Plus, she'll be promoted very hard, and perhaps she can make herself a star if so many people see her, because most people don't know who she is. But so she'll be in the public eye a lot, and then the story will come up too, which will actually probably be used in marketing the fight, that she's coming back from this brutal beating. But it's just, man, I've just seen too much stuff lately with and this is commission stuff more than, and promotion, both. They're both at fault. But where you see these fights that, shouldn't happen. Granted, people get hurt all the time in these fights anyway, but the idea that you put people in these fights that are not in their best shape, like Derek Lewis in that last fight, just wasn't in his best shape. Neither was Cormier, but Cormier beat him. Nobody got hurt, so that's nice, but still they weren't, they were, that fight being approved was questionable. The Liddell fight was worse than questionable. It was abhorrent. And then this fight, if someone's got a broken orbital bone, I just can't see them fighting in 7 weeks. Even if they're somewhat healed, it's like, how much training? Like I said, how much training can they do? They need to take better care of their fighters and not treat them like meat. But it's what's happening. So
what's the story with Sage? He did not get cut?
No. So
they just didn't renew him? That doesn't
No. Sage, no. Sage is very marketable. The July fight was the last fight in his contract, so he sat for a while and waited for he had an exclusive period where he could only negotiate with UFC. They made an offer for him, which was significant, and he was already making good money compared to his level of fighting because he's marketable, and he turned it down, and he waited until his period of exclusivity was done, and then when it was, he got offers from everybody: UFC, Bellator, Combate Americas, and one, of course, and I knew even a couple weeks ago that he was going to one. I mean, hasn't been announced. But, that was the rumors going around that he was going to one. And, it's pretty clear that's where he's going. He got the best offer from there. So he took his offer from one to UFC, and UFC would not match that offer. I don't know what it is, but, and it's funny because the New York Post wrote a story about how, the golden boy, Sage Northcutt, has fallen on hard times. He's been cut by UFC, and it's like he's fallen into a substantial, gigantic raise in a promotion that's going to promote him as one of their signature stars. Everyone should fall upwards like that. But they can, one is spending lots of money on guys that they think are marketable, and he's one of those guys. It's like, it's so unfair, but life's unfair. In a professional sport, you get fighters that are, unproven at the top level, getting top level money because they're good looking. But like I said, and getting endorsements, but that is the world, and if the people didn't buy it, it wouldn't happen. It's like you can say bad promoters, but it's like at the end of the day, the fans decide what they want. And if fans want assholes, they're going to promote assholes. If fans want pretty girls, they're going to promote pretty girls. If fans want good-looking guys, they're going to promote good-looking guys. When it doesn't work, they're going to go, hey, this didn't work. When it does work, they're going to keep doing it. That's the nature of it for everyone except for Vince McMahon, who just does whatever he wants. Everybody else is trying to, satisfy what they perceive is what the fans will pay to see.
So on the subject of falling up, what's up with WWE stock?
They had a good day today. They've been down for a couple weeks, and they had a big day because, the market was up, but that was only a partial reason. Guggenheim put out a report that said that they expect the stock price to hit 105. And right now, it was like in the 60s today, and it actually got up to about 71. So everyone thought, oh, it's underpriced again. And their reason is they believe that the India television deal will be renewed for 5 times its current rate, just based on the fact that television rights in India are way up, and, that's what they believe. And I don't know what's going on in Indian negotiations, but, it's significant. The 2 big TV deals yet to be signed are the UK and India. And India, all expectations were that India would be a substantial increase. And the UK is a very interesting market for a lot of reasons. The ratings are so low on Sky compared to what they were, years ago. And there's just a lot of differences in the economy between Sky and a lot of other people. But still, they've been an institution on Sky as well. So, when they made their last deal, part of the reason that they got the money they did on the last deal was because Sky was going to be able to market all the pay-per-views, and they undercut Sky without telling them about the WWE network. So the value of the pay-per-views went way, way, way down. So there's that was figured into the last price. So I don't know what's going to happen in the UK. But those are the 2 deals, the 2 major deals yet to be completed. But so the idea that they're going to get 5 times what they are getting now in India is led to people going up, buying back and getting excited about the stock again.
Well, let's talk about the Smackdown show from Tuesday night. We've got a 3-way now for the TLC pay-per-view. Asuka has been added. What did you think of the show?
It's better than Raw. A lot
exceedingly low praise here.
That is the lowest praise possible. Yeah, it was still a lot of talking, and I don't really. There wasn't like any memorable wrestling. There was a battle royal that was battle royal. There was angles to set up Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio, Nakamura against Rusev, Samoa Joe against Jeff Hardy, which Samoa Joe did a great job on that segment. I thought they gave him edgy material too. Ripping on Jeff Hardy's past substance abuse problems and calling attention to it and doing it in a heel manner. I think that it kind of worked. And then the first segment, you had the return of Becky Lynch, and they almost beat Raw in the ratings this week. It was actually very, very close. The SmackDown rating the Raw rating was the 4th lowest in modern history, And the third hour was the second lowest in modern history, which was not a shock that people tuned out on that show at a pretty high rate. I wouldn't have expected any different. I think the killer was the AOP versus Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. I'm not sure because it was, whatever it was something that made women turn off the TV, because women turned off in major amounts in that second hour at some point. You know, I don't know the point in the second hour, but there was something in the second hour. Guys didn't as much. Women, like, in a huge number. So I think it was something that they probably figured is tacky. And the tackiest thing on that show was that Drake Maverick thing. I don't know what kind of genius came up with. It was probably Vince. But if it was the person who came up with it was writing it for Vince, knowing Vince would like it. So anyway, I don't know that that's it. It's just my speculation. But whatever it is, I mean, I know the show sucked, and I know that people tuned out in pretty high ratios, and the rating was not good, and that was against a weak football game. So there's that. But SmackDown,
I mean, to me, it was at 35 minutes of Baron Corbin, followed immediately by an announcement that Baron Corbin's in the main event.
Yeah, but that's in the first hour. The tune out with women was second hour. So it was something.
Well, third hour still died. 2.1 million?
Yeah. Well, the third hour did bad for that because a lot of people tuned out, and also because what did they advertise for the third hour? Finn Balor and Baron Corbin. That wasn't going to get anyone excited. And Seth Rollins against a mystery guy, and evidently that wasn't strong enough either. So, yeah, the third hour, I think they're really hurt. That, you know, the loss of not having either Roman Reigns or Braun Strowman, I think that hurts a lot in the star power category. Because those were the people who they kind of were using a lot in the third hour, and they're.
I mean, there's no baby faces. I mean, at least Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman were baby faces that, like, to a degree, they protected. They took those two guys off the show. They have no baby faces they protect.
Well, they didn't took them off the show. One was injured.
They were removed from the show. But you know what I mean? There's nothing now.
Yeah, Seth, I know it's all Seth, who's good, who's really good, but yeah, nobody that they protected. I mean, like, the next rung is Finn Balor, who they've done everything but protect. And then Bobby Lashley they turned, and Dean Ambrose they turned. So yeah, and they book baby faces horribly anyway. So that's the predicament.
Hey, I got a stupid question for you,
okay,
because I never learn. Are they doing a mask match with Ray?
It hasn't been announced, but from the build-up, you would think that they might.
It's a stupid question because I'm looking at the build-up and trying to figure out where they go, and
based on
6 times out of 10, I'm wrong because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, based on the build-up, I would think the same thing, except like you said, if it just because that's if you keep going after a guy's mask and you keep talking about his mask, you're probably building to a mask match. But that doesn't necessarily mean you are in WWE.
Yeah, the question obviously is what would Randy be putting on the line? He's got no title. He'd have to put his hair on the line, of which he doesn't have a lot. I mean, maybe they'll just, I don't know.
I don't have an answer to that. I don't expect them to shave Randy Orton's head. I mean, maybe he wants to shave his head, and that's an excuse to do it, but
he had a shaved head in like 2008, 2009. I don't think he's opposed to the idea.
Yeah, so maybe
It's just not a lot of hair to shave off. Doesn't seem like much of a...
Well, maybe they'll, they could. I mean, they could do it. I'm sure that they'll do it on a 1-week build and it won't mean anything, but yeah, they could do it. I don't know that they'll... We got a couple weeks till this pay-per-view, so...
I got another stupid question for you.
Yeah.
So, last week, I thought SmackDown was one of the dumbest shows ever because of the lack of follow-up for Survivor Series, but there were some people that said, maybe it's Thanksgiving week. They're just kind of biding their time.
What does that have to do with anything?
And they're going to follow up like this week, and they'll follow up this big angle of SmackDown getting swept.
No,
nothing.
Not
nothing.
No.
What's happening here?
No, they just want to build around Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair and TLC and all that.
Why? I understand things aren't on pay-per-view anymore, but like as a viewer. Why in God's name would I ever spend money on a pay-per-view if you've got a stipulation like that and there's zero follow-up to SmackDown losing every single match? There was nothing.
Yep, there was nothing. I heard it was going to be in January.
They lost in November and like nothing's going to happen till January?
I don't know. I can't. They're not good at following up on stories, to say the least. And even if there was like a plan to follow up, half the time they change their mind anyway. So they don't. They may have done that and had a follow up, and then Vince just changed his mind and was just like, well, no one remembers anyway. So yeah, I don't know.
I got a couple other ones for you. So
okay.
Becky and Charlotte hate each other again after that hug.
I don't even start.
Sonya and Mandy are buddies again after they were breaking up.
Well, that could still go on. I mean, but yeah, they didn't do nothing in the Battle Royal, though.
Nothing.
I mean,
they were out there together as a united front to complain.
Yeah. You would have thought in the Battle Royal they'd have done like something like just really subtle, and there was nothing. You're right. And then Becky and Charlotte is just, yeah. I mean, I was watching that, and it's just like this. Charlotte just won the match in honor of Becky, for Becky, and now they're back feuding again after they hugged and everything. And Charlotte's a babyface too. And you know what? She turned on Ronda. She was a babyface against the Iconics the next day, 2 days later anyway.
Yeah.
And she's a complete babyface on the show this week. So.
And I guess the final question here is, trust me, I love Asuka. I think it's going to make for a better match. But what does Asuka have to do with anything here?
They just want to do I think they don't want to do a singles with Charlotte and Becky Lynch right now, so they do a 3-way. So it sounds like it's something different. They're, I don't know. I mean,
since when have they not wanted to run a feud into the ground? I mean, we've seen Seth Rollins and Ziggler like 60 times.
Yeah, but they're both set for a big match with Ronda Rousey, so they both have to be protected right now to some degree. I mean, the one thing, it's funny because I think the one thing when it comes to Survivor Series is kind of like what I was told before Survivor Series, is that like you have to go with the idea that it doesn't count and that everything goes back to normal after. So Charlotte didn't turn and everything goes back to normal after. She's a babyface. Daniel Bryan did turn and everything goes back to normal after, and he's still a heel. So that's kind of how you have to view Survivor Series, in the sense that it didn't happen other than Xavier Woods had a t-shirt on last week, and that's kind of where it ends. Everything else, it's like the Daniel Bryan loss was, I mean, I guess he sort of explained that he explained something. I don't remember. He did explain last week kind of some sort of a logical explanation.
Yeah, he's angry that the fans turned on him. It's the same thing Becky said, which, I mean, that never happened. But that's the story they want you to believe. You turned on Daniel Bryan by a couple of people chanting for AJ in a babyface versus babyface feud. That was enough to turn him into a crazy man.
Oh, I thought he was just obsessed and he needed to win the title in any way possible, and that's why he...
I don't remember him saying that. I thought he was just mad at the people.
No. He kind of made that clear, that he was... That, the people weren't he was mad at the people, but I mean, the whole thing was that he was going to do anything to get the championship. And AJ even said that, except AJ said so he was okay with the low blow, but stomping his head in, that wasn't cool.
I'm going to go back here and find out. I wrote down every word he said. But going back to the Asuka thing, I mean, if they're going to do Charlotte and Ronda Rousey first, and then they're going to do Becky and Ronda Rousey second at WrestleMania, I mean, shouldn't they do like a ladder match, a TLC match, and Ronda like shows up and beats the shit out of Charlotte with a kendo stick to cost her the match and set up their match at the Royal Rumble? And then you can do the other match at WrestleMania? I mean, doesn't that make sense?
There's a lot of ways you can do it, and that's one of them, for sure. I don't expect that they will, but that's absolutely a way to do it. And actually, it would be really good, because if Ronda started doing that, then they would cheer Ronda like crazy. So, or maybe they won't, who knows? But usually I think that the rule of thumb now is extreme violence that doesn't stop makes you a babyface. You know, if you stop, it's not so good. But if you keep going and going and going, the people are going to go for you, even if you turn on them. And angles, no matter what, are going to be. Oh, look, on NXT tonight at the tapings, they had Gargano and Ciampa. Spoiler, everybody. Okay, so fast forward. Gargano and Ciampa both beat up Aleister Black, and the people were chanting DIY at them because they got back together as a team.
How about that?
Yeah.
All right, any other SmackDown notes? 205 Live?
205 Live, they had a good match on 205 Live, tag match with Mustafa Ali and Cedric Alexander against Buddy Murphy and Tony Nese, where Cedric won, and it's to set up Cedric and Buddy Murphy at some point somewhere. But they're teasing Drake Maverick about pissing on himself on 205 Live, too. So it's not just relegated to Raw. It's actually invaded the other show as well.
Oh, lucky him.
Yeah. Trying to think what else was on. I think Becky Lynch's delivery of her promos was great. The New Day is not doing it for me. Their comedy, I don't know. They had the Usos beat. Okay, here's one. What the hell happened with Big Show and Sheamus and Cesaro?
I think he turned for the 36th time in his career.
Some number like that. My God. But after, they were together for, what, a month?
Yeah, it was about that.
I mean, isn't it a little quick to break them up?
I don't know. Maybe Big Show's hamstring is really messed up and they're just taking him off TV.
Well, usually when you take people off TV, they beat up your tag team champions and then walk away.
I don't know. I can't answer this. Maybe it's a swerve leading to something next week.
I suppose it could be. Yeah. I don't know. I thought maybe it was an injury thing too, because he was so immobile. But I mean, if you're going to take,
there is an injury. I mean, he mentioned his hamstrings all messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, he can barely walk.
Yeah. So maybe that's the deal. But yeah. So, but he could have just disappeared. They could have just said he was hurt. They didn't have to break him up, and he could rest and then come back with him when he comes back. I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess just another turn. It's like all the turns, and they mean nothing because there's so many of them. But I don't know. I did enjoy the SmackDown show. I mean, as far as watching it, I mean, I think after Raw, I probably would have enjoyed almost anything. But yeah.
All right. Any other NXT spoilers?
Shayna Baszler and is going to face Bianca Belair on the Phoenix show. That's the only match that's confirmed. Cassius Ohno and Matt Riddle kept their program going. They had another match. Matt Riddle won again, but this time it was like a real match. But Cassius Ohno attacked him after the match and laid him out. So that thing's still on. Yeah, Gargano and Ciampa beat up Aleister Black. And that was pretty much it. Tyler Breeze was there. He lost a North American title match to Ricochet. Kairi Sane wasn't there because she's got a disease.
Hand, foot, and mouth disease?
Yeah. She's getting better, but she couldn't be on the show. Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke debuted on TV, losing to Io Shirai and who was Io teaming with? Dakota. I think it was Dakota Kai. Hold on.
As you look for that, I'm looking at this Daniel Bryan promo, and in fact, all he said was the reason that he did it was because 3 years ago he gave up on his dreams, and he realized he needed to never give up, and thus he kicked him in the balls, and his dream came true.
Right. Yeah, it was all about his dreams to win the world title. Yeah.
He didn't necessarily say anything about any means necessary. He was mad that everybody was chanting for the other guy.
Well, they really weren't.
I know, but my point is it's the same thing they did with Becky Lynch. They made this imaginary deal where the fans had turned on the guy. They didn't turn on Becky, they didn't turn on Bryan. Yeah, for some reason, that's like the new thing when you turn heel. You have to yell at the fans for turning on you.
They figured before you could just do heel things and they would boo you. But now they're not. They're going to cheer you if you do heel things. So the only way to get them to boo you is to insult them personally and individually. You have to do that. And even then, it doesn't always work, but it works better than turning on somebody. So yeah, it was Dakota Kai teaming with Io Shirai. It was interesting because they had them lose their first match, Duke and Shafir. But you know, it's that. But yeah, it looks like maybe a three-way program with Ciampa, Gargano, and Black for the championship. I don't know that. I'm just looking at what was done because they still got one more taping where they're going to finalize that card.
Wait. So they reunited as a tag team, but they're still going to be wrestling each other in a three-way feud?
They didn't necessarily reunite as a tag team. They just joined together and they both beat the shit out of Aleister Black together.
I see.
Yeah. They didn't. It's not like they shook hands or anything like that. They just were both. Gargano was like kind of, but they did do some of their tag. They did one of their tag team moves on the guy though, and that's when the people got excited because they did one of their old moves. So, yeah.
Trying to think of where they could go with this. I mean, I think obviously the idea is that Gargano convinces Ciampa that he's his buddy again. Because remember when he turned, Ciampa was all over Twitter begging them to reunite the team. So, ultimately, Johnny's got to convince him that he's his buddy, but then he beats him for the title. And probably goes babyface again.
Yeah, I could see that.
Of course, they'll have to explain all of the stuff where he killed Aleister Black, who's a huge babyface. I mean, maybe Aleister Black will turn heel and they don't have to worry about it.
Aleister Black, I keep hearing Aleister Black's being considered for the main roster.
Well, that would solve that problem as well.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else from NXT, or should we jump into the mailbag?
We can jump into the mailbag.
All right, we got a lot of mailbag questions here. Mailbag at WrestlingObserver.com, everybody. If you're a new subscriber from the Black Friday deal, mailbag at WrestlingObserver.com. Try to keep your questions relatively short. If they're 15 paragraphs, probably not going to be read. This person here says, how much longer does Kevin Owens have on his WWE contract? Did he sign an extension earlier this year?
I don't know. I don't know how long his contract is. That's an interesting question right now.
This person here says, in the Nitro book by Guy Evans, he states that the Nitro where Goldberg defeated Hogan at the Georgia Dome was the most profitable day in WCW history. How is this possible?
That's completely impossible. It's completely impossible.
There was no pay-per-view, and it was not the biggest gate.
And it wasn't the biggest gate anyway. Yeah. No, the most profitable show would almost have to be the Hogan Sting show. I mean,
Starrcade 97, yeah.
It would have to be because the other shows that did like big numbers were the ones like with Rodman, and that way on the Rodman show you had giant payoffs to Rodman, Karl Malone, and Hogan, where the Hogan Sting show only had the big payoff to Hogan, and also did slightly better on pay. They both did about the same on pay-per-view, but actually I think Hogan and Sting did slightly better. But yeah, I mean by that there's no way that wasn't the most profitable show. I mean, the pay-per-view brought in millions and millions of dollars. The live gate for the Georgia Dome for Hogan and Goldberg, I think it was like 900,000, and 600,000+ buys on pay-per-view. I don't remember what they were charging. Was it like $35 then?
It's probably about $34.95.
Okay, so let's go with 17 average. 6 million times 17. 6 million. 600,000 times 17 is what, $11 million? That's $11 million. $11 million is a lot more than 900,000. And they didn't spend. I mean, they may have spent more, but they didn't spend that much more. So that's
9.6 million.
What?
That's 16 times 600,000.
Oh, is it okay? 900. Okay, so 9.6 million. Okay, I think it would be. But
10.2 million if you're $17.
Yeah, it's probably 17.5. 17.5 times 625. If you got your calculator right there.
17.5 times 625.
Yeah.
10.85 million.
Okay. So my 11.
That's more than 900,000.
Yes, exactly. So no, that's just not possible.
Spurs says, any word on how the tickets are selling for Wrestle Kingdom thus far?
We just talked about that. I mean, I haven't got a number. I mean, they're saying good, but
what the hell does that mean?
I don't know. I mean, I know that the floor sold out immediately, but it always does. I mean, well, it doesn't. Oh, I shouldn't say it always does, because a couple of years ago it didn't, but the last couple of years it has. It seems like it's doing well. Their business is still up, and so I don't know that they'll do what they did last year. Last year, the Jericho and Omega match was real big last year. And they don't have anything, I don't think they have anything that big this year. Okada Naito was a real big match last year as well. In some ways, I think the story of Tanahashi and Omega is a better story in some ways, but Okada and Naito were more over, realistically, but this is a great card. But yeah, I thought last year's card, to me, like this year's main events is pretty. It's good because it's like it's two top guys who've been built up real well, who have only wrestled once. I think they did the one match a couple of years ago. And then they never followed up on it because they were going to follow up in the ladder match, and then Tanahashi got hurt, and then they moved on. So it's somewhat of it's been a couple of years, only one match. There's a good Tanahashi comeback story that's actually been excellently done. So I mean, it's good. But I mean, I can't imagine that they're not going to do well. But I don't know if they'll do as well as last year. Even with a very strong lineup. I mean, they got like those matches like Ospreay and Ibushi, which hasn't been announced yet, but looks likely. And like Zack Sabre and Ishii, which is just going to be phenomenal. And who else? Jericho and Naito, of course. Okada and Jay. What other matches are there on that show? Don't even remember off the top of my head. Cody and Juice. Which hasn't been announced yet, but that's probable as well. I mean, it's a really good show. The junior, it's what is it? It's Kushida and Taiji Ishimori, which is going to be a great match, and then the junior tag 3-way, which should be very good. I mean, yeah. It'll do fine, but yeah, I don't know. Will it do as good? Yeah, I don't know if it'll do as good as last year though.
This person here says, could you ever see Cassius Ohno coming up to the main roster to team with Cesaro, as it appears him and Sheamus are starting a split? Are they?
I didn't notice that they were starting a split.
I didn't notice that either.
I mean, anything's possible, but I don't expect it. I have the feeling from watching everything and hearing everything is that Ono is going to be like a player coach at NXT, which is probably a good role for him because he's really, really smart. He really likes to teach young people stuff, and he can still go in the ring, and so I think he's valuable in that role. And also, if they brought him to the main roster, it's not like they're going to do anything with him. I mean, because if they would have brought him to the main roster years ago, because he's been good for years. So it's kind of like I don't know that they won't bring him up, but I never hear anyone talk about bringing him up. That doesn't mean they won't, but I never hear his name mentioned when it comes to that. I think that everyone sort of sees him as, like player coach in NXT, and eventually being on the coaching staff when his active wrestling days are over, and he should be on the coaching staff. I mean, he's a guy really suited for that.
This person here says, any idea if Chris Sabin is on WWE's radar, or are they not interested in him?
I've not heard his name, but he's a good wrestler. They're trying to stockpile people. So I could see it, but I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know what his contractual situation is. I presume it ends this year, which means it's coming up real soon. So, but yeah, I haven't heard his name mentioned.
Spread here says, is WWE going to pursue Ospreay when he's free and maybe offer him a similar deal as Walter?
I'm sure that they'll pursue him. I mean, he seems pretty adamant about. I mean, he's been pretty darn adamant about having no interest in going there. I know the times I've talked to him, it's just like he just doesn't. That's not his goal. His goal is to be an independent wrestler. I mean, that may change, but that certainly, he signed a long-term contract with New Japan. So that kind of tells you that his goal, his goal was New Japan. So he's there and he's in a good spot, and he's only going to be in a better spot as time goes on. I believe that, he in the heavyweight ranks, he'll do real well, and he'll have great matches with all of those Okada types of people, and Tanahashi and Kenny Omega and all them. He's going to have incredible matches with those guys. Someday, will he want to go? Perhaps, but I don't. And maybe things change. Lots of things change. Maybe he'll want to go with All Elite. My impression is that he doesn't really want to be in the United States a lot. That's another thing. And for him, I think for him doing the WWE UK thing, like Walter, I don't think that's what he wants. But, there's no absolutes.
This person here says, what season do you guys believe The Ultimate Fighter really ran its course? Do either of you even watch it anymore?
I mean, I've glanced at it from time to time, but I'm not into it. I haven't been into it for a long time.
I think right around 2010. I think the GSP cost check, I could be wrong. I think that might have been the last one that I watched.
GSP Koscheck was a good season. I watched long after that, but just too many things are happening, and it's not that important. If I watch 5 hours of UFC on a Saturday, it's going to take a lot for me to watch more UFC programming. I mean, I would watch UFC Tonight regularly just because, the news and the interviews. But, even the show, even UFC Tonight ratings aren't very good anymore. And I guess it's not even going to move to ESPN.
This person here says, I was wondering your thoughts on the Wilder versus Fury super fight. Do you think it'll be a good fight? How do you expect it to perform financially?
I don't know. I saw some clips of the weigh-in and everything like that. It got real heated. I don't see it as a big thing in the United States. I mean, it might be a big thing in the UK.
This person here says, when Vince Jr. started his national expansion, why did he target Los Angeles first?
It wasn't so much he targeted it. It was open. The Los Angeles promotion was just dead, and it was such a big market. So, I mean, he went there years before he went everywhere else. And he came to San Jose, too. It was just, the idea that, that it was a dead market. The local promoters had run it into the ground, and they weren't making any money. And so I don't know if he bought it. I don't know exactly how that went down, I think. But whatever it is, he worked with them. It's not like he went against them. Like in other places, he went against the established promoters in Los Angeles. He went with them. I mean, Jeff Walton came aboard, did his magazine. So I presume that it was definitely a harmonious change when the old office shut down and Vince started running monthly and big shows, and he drew very well. So it was, it was a big market that wasn't being serviced well. So that it made perfect sense for him to go there first. Yeah.
This person here says, I was reading The Observer. It says Khabib has one fight left in his contract before he is a free agent. The UFC contract still have the Champions Clause that will force a title holder into still defending the belt even if his contract is up.
I don't know, but everyone believes that you can challenge that clause and it won't hold up in court. And before, you had guys who didn't have any money who didn't want to go through the lengthy court fight, but Khabib's got lots and lots and lots of money, so I don't know that the UFC wants that thing challenged in court. It'd be tough.
It says, what was up with Roddy Piper bearing the gimmicks as a commentator in the early 90s? He was ripping on Colonel Mustafa, Saba Simba. Vince would sheepishly admit they had wrestled under other names before. How did Roddy get away with this on a post-produced show?
Roddy says what Roddy's going to say. He's uncontrollable, and they just kind of let him be, because if they started telling him what to say, he would suck. He would have sucked really bad. So I think that's your answer, is just he just said what he was going to say.
You know what's funny about that, though, is near the end of his career, when he was in TNA and then in WWE, it was like the opposite, where TNA, like, he would go out there and he'd just like ramble on and just say whatever the hell he wanted, and it was not that good. And then he'd go to the other show and he'd be much better. Like he was, it was like, it switched around there at the end, where he was better when they were kind of giving him stuff to say at the end, as opposed to just being on his own.
Yeah, well, I think he was fried, and then the thing was but he was an experienced actor by that point, and he was very used to scripts. So you scripted him.
That's true,
and he was real good at it. I mean, that's why he could flourish with the scripted promos, whereas so many other guys don't do well with them. Because the whole big joke is that, how many of these guys are trained actors? Very, very few. And you're trying to make them into actors, and they're not good. Roddy, I'm not saying he's a great actor, but he was a real actor. So that's his world, scripted promos.
First says, in the May 16, 2011 issue of The Observer, Dave mentioned a TVN survey that reinforced many of the negative stereotypes associated with wrestling fans. Namely, the survey backed the belief that wrestling fans in general have a lower education level and lower annual income than the average person. I haven't heard any other type of survey like this in the 7 years since. Was wondering if Dave was aware of any other surveys or reports similar to it, and if so, do they also indicate that wrestling fans earn less on average?
I have not seen. I mean, if there was any surveys since then, I would have reported on them. So I have not heard of any. But I mean, it is the belief. But yeah, it is the belief, because if it wasn't, the ad rates on wrestling shows would be much higher than they are.
This person here says, when I first got into WWE, my favorite wrestler was Gangrel. But unfortunately for the character, David Heath cannot work. Do you think if that character with the cool entrance and theme was given to a more talented performer like The Undertaker was given to Mark Calloway, it could have worked? Yes.
I do believe that it was, I liked the ring entrance and everything like that. And, but I don't think that it was because he couldn't work well that is why it didn't. I mean, it had its run. And I think in time it was real clear that, like, Edge was the guy they wanted to be the star, not Gangrel. So they kind of had to phase him down so Edge could be the star.
And finally here, why did WCW hold Starrcade for consecutive years in Washington, D.C.?
I don't have a good answer, but it did real well in for both shows. So the first one sold out way in advance. They probably figured, hey, if it sold out way in advance, let's go back the second time.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. The New Observer is up on the front page right now. You can head up there and check that out. We have lots of shows coming up over the next couple of days, tons of them over the last few days as well. If you're a new subscriber, jump into the archives, 9,500 shows in there. So there should be plenty to listen to while you wait for the next one here. So check those out and all the other great stuff. And that's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.